Thank you, Vaughn.
Yeah.
Call the meeting to order at 4:06. Any late items for the agenda? Can I get a motion to adopt the agenda as presented?
So moved, Lightfoot.
Seconder?
I'll second it.
Thank you. Can I get a motion to adopt the minutes from April the 6th, 2022 Citizens Advisory Select Committee?
I'll move that. Lightfoot.
Can I get a seconder?
I'll second it.
Thank you. So what I neglected to do, just gonna start as a discussion, I'm gonna move 6.1 up now, so Mr. Dickinson can give his spiel to us, and then he can leave the meeting.
Mr. Dickinson's been muted by the host, so
Yep. He's good now.
there you go.
Yeah, Ian, it almost happened 2 meetings in a row, so I'm
Starting to feel sensitive.
yeah. Anyway, for all that effort to get me unmuted at all, I don't have a lot to report that I haven't reported already. The building bylaw 710 is what the topic is, I guess, and it's going before council next week, and we'll probably get second reading. As far as amendments go, still working on that with the lawyer, but they're not significant amendments. So whatever you see today and at the next meeting with council will probably be practically, for all intents and purposes, the end result is going to be very similar to what we're looking at today. So as brief as there's questions, I'm here for that. So if anybody wants to talk about anything about the bylaw, we can open the floor to that if you're willing, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. I'll just go through our list. Member Michelle, any questions?
Not at this time, no.
Thank you. Member Lightfoot?
I've got a couple of questions and I'm not sure if they relate to 710 or 711 or the OCP. And it's regarding high density housing, such as multi-units or small houses, accommodating small houses on small lots. Where does that fall in overview? Would it be in 710?
No, it doesn't. It'll be part of either the current zoning bylaw or the zoning bylaw that may be amended. So it really won't be addressed in 711 issues either. It'll be part of the ongoing process of reviewing the zoning bylaw and the official community plan.
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah.
Thank you. I just tabled a report that'll be on the next council, and really it's just a draft zoning bylaw amendments. And council consideration, and my recommendation is then to take that report and send it over here to the CAC. I didn't add a lot of different things. It does deal with multi. It also deals with things like group homes and things in the future that may be needed. I'm really concerned about not making anybody a legal non-conforming use. So try to add more uses, but try not to take anything away. In terms of you'll be able to build carriage homes. We certainly could look at tiny homes on tiny lots, but they present their own issues. But I'd be certainly happy if the community wants to look at that. Did some work in both Greenwood and Grand Forks with them, so I'm familiar with the concept. And we could look at it. So you'll see that coming at the next agenda, council agenda. And really that's, what I would say is just a draft of things that we could change or look at. And it's really up to the community now to give the input on it. So those types of things will be done in the zoning bylaw specifically.
Okay. Thank you. I know Mr. Dickinson and I both listened to a CBC show on affordable housing, and Edmonton was cited as one of the communities that didn't have an issue because of their small house and carriage components. So it's good to know we're open to that possibility. Thank you.
Yep.
You have more questions, Member Lightfoot?
No, thank you. That's all.
Okay, thank you. Member Hogan?
No, I'm good for now. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Dickinson. Appreciate you coming. I know you're a busy man and it takes time away from your desk. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody. And bye for now.
Moving on now to section 4, committee positions open. Still have 3 vacant spaces. You can notice in the minutes, it said that I'd asked them to be put in a couple of Fridays ago. I haven't received them. I'm gonna jump ahead a bit. When we go on to number 5, we're gonna have to discuss the difference between the unmet needs committee and this committee, because there's a lot of difference between the two. So anyway, if anybody has got anybody that wants to join this committee, please send forward their names and the recommendations with a short write-up on why they would like to join, and I'll take it to council. Any questions on that one?
Lightfoot making a suggestion that could be part of the next newsletter or on the village website somewhere, so it hits a wider audience.
Sure.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Next one's 4.2, citizen advisory, internal communications and how people can get a hold of us. This was brought up by member Gessie, and I forgot to bring it up at about 2 meetings ago. I've spoken with the CAO about it, and what people can do is they can send any messages they would like to come to the CASC into communications@lytton.ca and just put attention CASC and it will get to us.
Just one thing, it's the email is actually communication without the S on it.
Oh, yes.
Communication
Communication.
at Lytton.
Yeah, it's always been
Okay.
like that. It's been a problem. Yeah.
It actually redirects, so it's good, but
Lightfoot has
word
another
into-
comment, if I may.
Yep.
Just another suggestion that also be part of the newsletter or website information available. It's easier, it hits a wider audience if it's posted, then we can direct people on specifically how to apply. That's part of our communications, right? Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Moving on to 4.3, CN gift card donations. Council did a resolution. Now, the donations is gonna run into the unmet needs committee's responsibility if I go by what EMBC put out in February 2022. So one of the things that is very important is time. And I'm not talking about time to get them out. I'm talking about time for people to spend them. So we don't want to make sure that they get these things and have to drive somewhere within the next week or two to do it. So last week I had tried to get down to the Resilience Center. I wanted to get down with member Lightfoot and pass them out. And today would have been another day. I would have pushed this meeting off to give them out. And our CFO had brought $7,000 worth up, which would have been enough for 20 people, and had to get them to take them back home. What we have a big problem, at least I have a problem with, which hasn't been answered to me since about the 3rd of July, is where is everybody? Do we have, I keep hearing about lists that we've got everybody's address, we know where they are. And then when I ask that list, it's, well, I think somebody else has got it. So when we get into this, we're gonna end up missing people. That leaves me with a bit of a guilt problem. So like to know if there is a list out there. I've been told a couple times people have gathered this list. I know when I tried to do it was like, I was declaring war on somebody. So anyway, I'm gonna open the floor up for people that
Okay.
would like to, our people here on the committee that would like to discuss how we're gonna get these out. And please let me just put this on the floor so everybody understands. This is a committee problem. The committee has no say over village staff. Village staff will not be doing this. They're busy, busy, busy. So anyway, I'll open the floor up to Member Hogan first.
Yeah, I'm not too sure how the best way to go about it, but there would probably just doing it through the Resiliency Center is one of the better options.
That's the election was today, wasn't it?
Yeah.
That was my thing too. The one of the big ones too, remember, Hogan, was when CN passed these out, they let everybody know they were gonna be at Anderson Creek, and that's where everybody went to get them. And that's what we wanted to do here. We're gonna be at the Resiliency Center. Madam CAO can get that out to all our people pretty quick. What I don't feel comfortable with, and I know our CFO doesn't either, is sitting around with $30,000 or $40,000 of untraceable cards sitting in front of me. I just don't like that idea. So. Anything else, Member Hogan?
No, that's what I have to offer right now.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. Member Lightfoot?
I have a lot to say, so prepare yourselves, okay?
That's okay. You always do.
I know, and I'm trying to be concise and direct in my comments. So I have to say, when I saw the announcement about the gift cards, I was surprised that it was portrayed that it was the recommendation that came from this committee, because it was not. And I found that quite upsetting, in that with one comment from the floor that what I consider a major revision had taken place. And there's two issues because of the revision. One issue being the time frame. Before, citizens within the municipality had till the end of June to access their cards. It was suggested at our last meeting that it be June the 15th. And the committee agreed that we would make it June the 29th. So the motion that came from council, and that was council's motion, not this committee's. This committee's motion was amended by council. These small discrepancies in actual fact are what causes a lot of distrust, because people watch all of these committees and they see the discrepancies in what's going forward and what's being stated. So I'll put that aside for now, but so that's the one issue. The other issue is that we had a good conversation among this committee about the financial details. And that's why the amount was set at $350. The number of citizens has gone up by 10. And I think I suggested in my overview that 155 could go up or down. At this point, it's about 165. And that leaves $450 surplus. So there's been a fair amount of discussion and flack on the outside here that we're just tossing TNRD leftovers. My recollection of the last meeting was we said there's another $24,000 that if we got the details on whether it was gas, cash, or food, we could make a decision regarding those, which have an end date of December 31st. And perhaps TNRD residents that were displaced in the Lytton area could receive out of that funding source. So what this has done is it's put the citizens of Lytton on a shorter timeline without any clear strategy on how to deliver the money. We've taken it from 10 weeks back to 6. And council has had that money for months and they haven't been able to devise a plan or get it out. So I don't know why it's being become our responsibility to disperse it. Anyway, so one issue is the time frame. I believe citizens of the village of Lytton are being are put at a disadvantage. The other thing is, if everybody applies, there's insufficient funds. We're short about $7,000 if there's 20 TNRD people, as has been suggested. And in addition, has TNRD been advised that we're going to send it to them? My thought was, and it's just my thought, we didn't have any agreement, was that those people could be served from the Lytton dispersal if there were adequate funds, or subsequently in another funding outflow. So the fact that you've shortened the Lytton residents' window of opportunity to access these cards to June the 1st creates even greater urgency. And I'm sorry that the CFO brought down that money. I have a phone, I have an email, I have faced a wall of silence on any suggestions I put forward. And so communication is two-way street. And if that was happening, it would have been nice to have been advised so we could have accommodated that and got some out, because there were a lot of people out voting today. People that from Hope, from Ashcroft, and the list has been provided to staff. The person that collected it said some people didn't want their information shared widely. In the past, you've instructed this committee that you couldn't share personal information with us. So I don't understand why it's an issue. It is in your hands, in your administration. Some questions that I posed, such as, could we create a release form so that people that have aged parents or whatever could come in and pick up for them, would make it easier. I don't know, if we're gonna get it out by June the 1st, we need to have some sort of discussion immediately within the next few days, because they need to start flowing next week. People in Ashcroft are telling me that I have people coming up to me that say, I really need that money. How can I get it? When am I gonna get it? There's seniors in assisted living in Merritt that are feeling like nobody cares about them. And they're on Facebook, they're saying, well, I lived in Lytton. So I've sort of reached out to one or two of them to know that we've got you on the list and someone will get it there. They're not going to be traveling to Lytton. So there needs to be a release form, or there needs to be someone travel to those key locations and disperse it. But I haven't even seen the disclosure form. So we don't know what we're working with. We don't have enough details to make a plan. And the plan that we had last time that we put forward got trashed when the amendment was made. So communication needs to be, it's not that hard if we all sit down. I mean, I have the assumption that Terry needs a name with against every number, every Visa card. If that's the case, and I've stated it several times and I haven't been corrected, so I must assume that it is the case. Are those cards being bundled into $350 packages? That would aid in disbursement. I've sent several suggestions to you. It's been, like I said, a wall of silence. You can tell I'm somewhat frustrated, but mostly I'm worried that the citizens of Lytton won't get their cards. And if they do, that's great. But then that brings up the second problem, that there's not enough funds for the TNRD to access any. I mean, I've brought up a bunch of points. I don't want to keep going because you're looking like I've
Okay, good
maybe
night.
made it too hard already. And as far as, and if we throw this into the unmet needs, I mean, we've been jumping around on these topics a bit, so I'm just going to jump on this. I have to say I was shocked when I heard our chairperson say that we welcomed the unmet needs responsibility with open arms. I had several people phone me up and said, what? That's not what we saw when we reviewed it. That's not what I intended when I said that this group needs to be better informed before they make the decision to take it on. But what I'm hearing from many people is that there's two issues here. CASC has different priorities than an unmet needs committee. An unmet needs committee may go on for years. CASC predominantly has been dealing with OCP, building materials, things like that. The unmet needs committee would have to have a lot of good financial information to make informed decisions. And that's not something that we're getting here. We're struggling to get information on these bloody cards. I'm sorry, I digress. But anyway, so I think they need to be two separate committees. We took this one on because we listened in and we know that we had thought that the cards expired the end of June. So we thought there was some urgency to start getting it moved out. I know Terry would like to have all of them gone. The other ones have a longer expiry date. That's why we thought we would consider TNRD and other recipients in the next round. I'll let it go at that, but I'm not sure if we need a subcommittee call or something, but it's doable, but we have to be coordinated. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll turn it over to the CFO in a minute, but I think people are under a misunderstanding of what a committee is. A committee takes information to a council. The council can accept 5%, 20%, 100%, or 0 and send it back. Because what seems to be happening, because the committee sends something to council and because it's not acted on to the letter, feelings are getting hurt, and I just don't understand that. And when you talk about a wall, member Lightfoot, I sent you an email asking you for your shift hours at the resiliency center, because you and I are the only ones not working that could get off during the day, and I was more than willing to come in at any time and sit there and have those dates posted onto our website so people could come and get those cards anytime that they so desired. And when I made the remark the other night of open arms, at the council meeting, when the donations tried to come over to the committee, I was quite adamant that I could not accept that or make that decision at the council meeting until I spoke with the committee. And then at our last committee meeting, everybody was, yeah, we want to do this. Yeah, we want to do it. Yeah. So I don't understand why we're being kept in the dark and why we think that it was forced on. Anyway, those are just mine. CFO, do you have any remarks?
Sorry, I think I was prevented from unmuting myself. Thank you, Yvonne. Thanks for all the comments. Ms. Lightfoot, I really apologize. Like, I don't remember any discussion at all to do with the other cards last meeting. Like, that's complete news to me. And I was at the meeting and I have no recollection of that whatsoever. So relative to the disbursements of these cards, I've said to the chairman of this committee that we want to have it simple, efficient, and get the cards out there with some sort of minimal controls so that we have a record of who is receiving the cards and that we're not liable for cards that go missing. So those are our goals. We want to get them out as quickly as possible. In terms of driving to various locations, I don't know. I don't see that we have the resources to do that kind of thing. We're stretched in terms of our capacity right now already. In terms of this week in terms of people coming to vote and so on. Our Madam CEO directed us that it was completely inappropriate for us to be dispersing cards at the time of an election. There's an inherent conflict, perceived conflict of interest to do that. So it's not like we're doing things in isolation without proper forethought and consideration. Like I say, at the end of the day, we want it to be simple, efficient, minimal controls to get these cards into the people's hands that require them. Those are my comments. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
If I
Thank you, CFO.
may I clarify? So if someone comes in and get $350 worth of the Visa cards, do you have to know the individual number on each of those cards that that particular person got? Or can they just sign that they've received $350 worth of cards?
Thanks, Yvonne. My position is that we have an inventory of all the cards, and for liability purposes, we need to know if you're coming in and signing for your elderly parents and children, which we don't have an issue with that. We're just going to make a record of you signed for these 5 or 6 cards, right? So we have to have some sort of record. Otherwise, in the absence of that, we really have no control, right? If we don't keep track of call it the serial number or card numbers, if we're just going to hand them out without recording them, we essentially have zero control.
So would it make sense to pre-record bundles with all the numbers? So that if you had, I mean, every time someone comes in, say they've got 5 in their family, you don't want to have to record 20 cards or whatever. But if you had bundles 1, 2, 3, and 5, up to 5, if they were all pre-recorded, does that make it easier?
We can handle that aspect of it. We have an inventory, they're in an Excel spreadsheet. So for us to quickly know which cards that we're dispersing, it's not a monumental task. But as the chairman identified, other concern is to have a staff person or a committee member driving around with $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 of these cards in their backseat of their car. So that's a concern as well.
Yeah, you know what, it's just ballpark figures, but I figure 10 that I know of in Merritt, 20 that I know of in Ashcroft, 30 that I know of in the Lytton area. If we could just ballpark those and have that many set aside, would you give that authority to, say, a volunteer to drive it to Ashcroft, with the understanding that they would receive signatures for everything they gave out? Could we be your agent, say, with smaller amounts? Something to consider. I don't expect an immediate answer, but I think that might be a strategy that would help get them to the people that are isolated or immobile.
Yeah, my simple answer is I'd want to chat with the recovery team to ensure that we're all on the same page and that everybody is comfortable with the controls that we're putting in place. I don't think it's solely my decision, but
Okay.
as long as if it's reasonable and efficient, that's our goal. We're not trying to encroach on somebody's privacy or information or anything like that. We're just trying to do what a reasonable expectation would be from CN on us for these cards, right? We can't treat $80,000 in almost virtually cash in a very cavalier or casual way.
And we definitely don't want them to lapse, right?
Absolutely.
We want to get them out. Yeah.
No.
So has there been a signature form produced or an agent form to give permission to someone to pick up for other people? Have those forms been generated or produced at this point?
We can, like I said, we can handle the mechanics once the committee provides their recommendation to council and council resolves to their decision. But the mechanics of it, like that, other than the physical location and distribution. I think that's more of an issue for me, but I'm not worried about the form and.
Well, council has approved it, so we need to, at the last meeting, it was passed as a resolution, so it's been given the go-ahead, hasn't it?
So I think maybe I'll just add something in to end this. I'll contact CN and see how they got it to people that didn't pick it up at Anderson Creek. And what maybe be able to take a lead from there.
They signed a piece of paper that said they were so-and-so. I think they showed a piece of ID, although they didn't record the ID, but they showed a piece of ID and they made a statement that they had received it. I think within our realm of, I mean, maybe even people on the committee, I didn't receive any myself, but I think a couple of our members maybe did, and they may be able to clarify exactly what CN demanded, but it wasn't a lot, I don't believe. Johnny and Melissa, I'm not sure if you could comment.
Yeah, so I didn't go to Anderson. I contacted CN after. They had one contact person for it, and we had to send in copies of our ID through email, and then they mailed it out to us.
Okay.
And John, you had a couple of comments in chat. Maybe you want to say those to the committee too.
Member Hogan, you have the floor. And then
Sure,
you-
what I would. Am I muted?
No.
Oh, you're okay.
What I wanted to suggest is that we divide up the list of the people we know and where we travel to, that committee members can sign for them and then do it that way, or we can ask, put it out there asking if they can pick up their card in person in Lytton, which committee member would they want to deliver the cards to them? Saves us from doing a lot of talking anyway.
I mean, security again might be an issue. I don't know if we're handing out $10,000 to one of us, and I don't know. Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, I think as Mr. Hawes said, yeah, I think we can figure out the mechanics, as a recovery committee. We have a committee here, we have the people in this committee. There are releases. I mean, there's first and foremost, getting the people to the resiliency center, if that's the main distribution area. Finding out who can't be there. You mentioned Jesua, there's a number of people in Merritt, then let's just figure out the way to get it to Merritt. Whether we have a release that a member of the committee signs a release saying I'm taking responsibility for this, and I will get this form, we'll fill it out properly and that kind of thing. I think that's kind of thing that Terry said. We'll just sit down and figure out the best way to do it. But as far as I'm concerned, get as many out. I agree with John. And then those that can't go, if they actually know a member of the committee or a committee can contact us, then a member of the committee could be in many ways no different than a relative, right? I mean, in fact, maybe the committee member is better because we know the committee members. Somebody showed up to the Resilience Center and said, I'm so-and-so's granddaughter, I'm here to pick up his money, then, we'd have less ability, right? Once that's released. So I'd be comfortable with some kind of mechanism we could build, and if committee members were willing to look at that for members of the community that weren't able to come in, I'd be willing to look at that as an option.
The biggest concern that we have is, unfortunately, in Lytton, there's no secure place to keep them. We don't even have a jail to lock them up in. So they're gonna be at somebody's house, okay, and somebody's gonna know they're gonna be there, okay, and if you got $50,000 or $60,000 of cash laying around, there's some people, I'm not talking about from Lytton, some people in the world that know about it, and I just don't feel comfortable having that, at least in my possession. And that's, we gotta figure out how to get amounts of it out here so we can disperse, get the next amount out, get it dispersed.
So I think we have a game plan, Jesua. I think your points are well taken, John. We'll get the resilience there, get a date where we can get it there. And then B, the plan B is who are the isolated communities, and how will we, either through committee members or some other mechanism, if there are groups, find a way to do that that's still secure. So Terry could sleep at night when the serial numbers are recorded properly and somebody accepts responsibility for the transfer.
May I add one more anomaly to the scenario? We have a few people that are out of province or in the northern province or in the far east of the province. I know Terry was reluctant. He didn't want to send stuff out registered mail. But is there some way that we can accommodate these few? It's probably less than 10. I'm only thinking of 3 households right now, but is there some way that we could accommodate mailing it to them if they request that mode of delivery through correspondence to the committee or to the council?
Yeah, I don't see any problem with that at all, Jesua. My comment was that if we had to send out 200 envelopes registered mail at $25 or $30 a piece, that's going to cost us a lot of money. But if there's a handful, 3, 10, I mean, that's completely reasonable, and I don't see any issue with that whatsoever.
Great, thank you.
In Fort McMurray, Jesua, that's how the Red Cross, of course, as you could imagine, half of Fort McMurray lives in Newfoundland. And that's about, almost all of them went out by mail when they sent they had visa cards for residents there too. And that's how they went out.
Okay, thank you.
Member Michelle?
I'm good with all of that. My only concern is that the conflict with the whole vote, that it's not done on actual voting day, because as most people know, I am running for council. And as a member of the committee, I wouldn't want something being said about that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Point taken. Super. Thank you, CFO, for attending. You can ride off into the sunset now also, if you'd like to. Appreciate it.
Oh, I'm sorry, Councillor Hay. I mean, Chair Hay. Before Terry leaves, if he hasn't gone already, what are we going to do about the issue if we don't have enough money for TNRD? Or if that's a non-issue because we give it all out, does he still want this committee to formulate some plan to get the rest of it out? And I'm assuming that this committee may want to discuss assisting those who lost their primary residence within the Lytton rural area in the future.
Are you speaking about the first batch of Visa cards, Jesua? Is that what you're referring to?
Well, they changed the motion the other night that says after June the 1st, whatever monies haven't been picked up by the citizens of Lytton, that it would go to the TNRD.
Right.
I'm hoping that we can give out all the money to the citizens, so there's nothing left to give to the TNRD. But earlier we had a conversation where you indicated there was like another $24,000 or something of various cards, food, gas money.
Yeah.
And so I'm wondering if this committee makes a decision that they would like to support those 15 to 20 TNRD residents that lost their primary residence. If we wanted to make $350 available to them, is there $7,000 worth of gift cards that we could contemplate that? It's not a decision today, but I know there's hard feelings from people outside of the municipal boundaries that feel they're being neglected. And I can understand that. And if we have money, I think this committee has indicated that they have an inclination to support that type of advocacy.
Right. So what I would do is defer that to the chair of this committee, and also note that staff have not, and the committee, to my knowledge, have not received any instructions or requests from council to provide a recommendation on those cards just yet. I think that's something that will be coming, but I don't believe it's been actioned in any way, but I'll defer to the chairman to correct me if I'm incorrect.
Okay.
So when I read 4.3, the adopted by council. That's not what I recall. I recall that if there was anything left over, it was gonna go to the TNRD. And even, and then anything left over go to the food, that was a change. I'm going to go to the recording to check this, okay, just to make sure it is, because that is not the top part there where it says that all citizens, men, women, and children who have their primary residence destroyed in the June 30th fire, Lytton Creek fire in the village of Lytton and TNR area be eligible to receive. I do not remember that last part, the TNR area being eligible. They were getting, once we have to have a catch. We got 200 cars to put out, 150 vote, we're sitting here on the 29th of July. What are we gonna do with them? Throw them in the garbage? So what we did is we started out with the food bank, and then there was a cry of people wanting the money in the TNRD. So council changed that. If there's money left over, then it would go there. And that's what I recall from the meeting. So I will play the whatchamacallit back, the tape of the meeting back to get what was done. If this was the one done, then I will ask for it to be rescinded and corrected.
Yes, and my issue with the whole amendment is you've shortchanged the citizens of Lytton 4 weeks access to the cards. So instead of June the 29th, they have to make sure that they chase us down to get their money before June the 1st,
And
which
there's
is
no reason why-
less
there's
than
no
6
reason
weeks
why
away.
we couldn't go door to door and pass them out and have, we're not talking 8 million cards here. We're not talking 8 million. We're talking about bringing in a staff of 5 people to sort, what, 250 cards? All
I
you
don't
have to
know,
do
is that what we're talking about? I haven't heard a plan on how we're going to sort them even, or if we are. I thought,
I would suggest this, and I'm getting a bit off key here as a chairperson, but I would sit with the box of 200, 150, and I'd say 200, 150, 350, here you go, thank you, could you sign here, please? That's what I would say to do it, and probably pretty easy. And the person that signs it would give a picture ID with your driver's license number on, or whatever number's on it.
and if someone
Our
comes in from
CFO
Ashcroft,
our-
yeah, whatever.
What our CFO has to have is when somebody comes and says, I didn't get my card, somebody signed for it for me, that he can go back and check.
We diverted off the point. The point was we have less time to get them out. You're saying it won't take much time, but you've had them since February and nothing has gone out yet. So I would suggest that 6 weeks is going to be a push for us to get it out to all the citizens. 10 weeks would have been, we would have been able to have a little more relaxed strategy and move it out. That's just my comment, but
I know.
I'm ready to move on.
I was assured there was a list taken of everybody in the village and their address where they were to get to. And when I asked for that, I was told, no, the CAO has it. I went right to her and said, was that ever passed to you? And the answer I got, no, it was never passed to me. So I'd like to know where some of our people are. I can give you 3 or 4 names right now. You don't have an address for. I'd
Well,
like
see,
the address.
your CAO does have the list, and I'm confused that they may not all have addresses. Some of them have phone numbers, some of them have emails. Some of them said they didn't want it widely shared, but it has been passed on to staff. It's not my list. I don't have a digital copy.
I've asked for those lists and I've never been able to find them. But anyway,
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, there's lots of lists. I think that's the problem. So, and I don't think any of them are perfect. So, you know, that's been part of the problem. So yes, there are lists, there are a number of lists, but none of them are perfect. And that could be where this confusion is. As just as you said, some of them have numbers, some of them don't have addresses, some people don't want to be contacted. So I
The reality is, for staff that didn't grow up in Lytton or didn't live in Lytton, the reality is most of us can sit in our living room and we can go by house by house by house down the street and we know who those people are. And we know who they know. So we can figured out pretty quick where they are, the majority of them. Some of them I don't know. But, you know, the reason the numbers went up last time is because all of a sudden we realized, all right, we didn't put in the assisted living. There's 6 people there. I don't know who they were, but someone that goes and visits one of those people provided those 6 names. So
Yeah,
the list is in your hands, and if not, I'll ask the person who produced it to forward it to you again. But it's not to be shared widely, and you should be able to understand that because you told us the same about lists that you've had in the past.
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's the same list, but if you give us another copy, that'd be great. Then we
Okay.
know for sure.
I'll see if I can get her to do that. Thank you.
Thank you.
So moving on to number 5. The unmet needs responsibility, that was passed on by council, and I do believe that I'm going to be speaking to staff about it, because when I read the EMBC Recovery Guide for Local Authorities and First Nations, 4th edition, February 2022, we've got a committee with 2 parts in it that answer to 2 different people. CASC answers to mayor and council. The Unmet Needs Committee answer to Mr. Matusi in his role as the manager. So there's 2 different things, and when I read through that, some of the people that they're after agencies to be in there. And what I see, and I'm sorry, is this, some of the stuff that people and agencies that have to be in that unmet needs is way beyond some of our capabilities. Oh. Mr. Hogan, if you get any comment on that?
No, I've got none right now.
Member Michelle?
Yeah, I thought the same thing when I read over that page. It seems like it's bigger than us. Like it's not something that we would do as a committee.
Yeah, right. Thank you. Member Lightfoot?
I don't believe it should be given to this committee. I think this committee has said in the past that they didn't want it. I think they, like, as you stated, I believe CASC and unmet needs have different priorities, and that unmet needs has asked for volunteers and they've received good names. And it seems to me that it would be a committee that goes on for a longer term and addresses bigger issues. So respectfully decline to take on that responsibility is my position. You know, but I'm in the CASC, so, but I don't think it's wise, and I don't think it would be efficient way to proceed. I know on the street, there's a lot of people still want the unmet needs. They think it should be 2 separate entities.
And I believe it, I believe we can put it back because we're gonna have 2 new council members coming on. The reason it got put into here is because we were the only committee going and I was the only council member able to do it. And that's why I definitely didn't want this, the unmet needs, because I knew it was way beyond our capabilities. And I'm talking about educational wise. So anyway, Mr. Tucci?
Thank you. Yeah, there's all the committee members, have they all spoken? Just to make sure all of them have it, yeah. You're Mr. Chairman, I think you're right. I think that in a perfect world, the Unmet Needs Committee, the one I was used to, the one we created in Kelowna, was really a separate society that met on needs and dealt with all kinds of donations and all kinds of needs. Now, in that case, the work that the Red Cross would be doing by interviewing people and doing casework that would identify, so one of the, we need somebody to identify what those needs are. In the case of Kelowna, we actually had a storefront and people would go, but it's easier because the city was still there. The whole portion was burnt, but the city itself was still there. In this particular case, really it's been the Red Cross is doing case management, but we could still have that turning it over to a society that reports out publicly and all those things. And And that way, when you're dealing with, much like we saw today with things like cards or donations or fundraisers that donate money, then you have a society of members of the community to make the decision. I think that's the best place to make it. I don't think any elected person really wants to get in the way of deciding how to distribute, donations in a situation like this. So, I think there are two separate. To me, the CAC was really a direct response to have input, general input, specifically about things like the building bylaw and some of those planning. And it makes sense that the CAC reports back to council because, in fact, all those things are things that council has to deal with. But certainly in the normal recovery world, you can create an unmet needs committee, and as you just said, Joshua, it could be something that goes on. The committee could live on past dealing with other unmet needs and other recovery issues. So I too see them as two separate entities, and in a perfect world, that's exactly what we have. And I think that in that other world, if we had members of the committee, whether they become an actual society or not, it could form as a committee. Then you could bring in the Red Cross, you could bring in all these other United Way and all these people, because sometimes when you identify needs, sometimes the best way to deal with them is through an NGO. So there may be people at some point we find that may have real difficulty rebuilding, but there may be something like Habitat for Humanity or Salvation Army or one of the other NGOs that actually support people doing that. And that's where I think an unmet needs can start really tapping into the village's needs with these NGOs that do have money and have programs, but you have to align the two. So, at this point, I think if we could find people to sit on an unmet needs committee, it'd be my recommendation to have it as a separate entity and try to come up with the terms of reference like that. We have a template that we can use from the NBC.
So if I may, can I just rephrase to make sure that I understood you accurately? So an unmet needs committee could evolve into a society as time progresses to become more inclusive of outside agencies, but initially it would be a committee formed by council with local. I mean, there were 4 names that came forward a couple of meetings ago, and I know of a couple other people that said they put their names in. So I think you have people that have shown interest. So it's sort of staged. You wouldn't just jump in and be a society right from the get-go, right?
No, and how it's formed, I'd have to go back and speak to council as how it's formed, because you don't want to create a council committee because then it's a council committee. And I think this has to operate somewhat at arm's length of council. I think council's role in it should be oversight, that there are reports back to council. So council, as the duly elected body of the village, is ensure that these people are in fact distributing donations and doing their job in a manner that's appropriate. But I think they should be arm's length. What the best mechanism to do that? I'm going to have to go back and think about. We had a little slightly different situation in Kelowna in that we had a regional response, and so it may have been actually created through the regional district, but it still wasn't a regional district committee. It was a separate unmet needs committee for recovery. So if in fact the community and council wants to follow that pursuit, we'll just find a mechanism to put it in place.
As Mr. Matucci said, because I'm just going by what was written by ENBC February 2022, and it says the Unmet Needs Committee reports to the Community Recovery Manager. Okay, once you start bringing in Red Cross outside the realm of any control by council, you bring in the railways outside, so it would be, as Mr. Matucci says, a standalone, and usually would go into to make it a recognized identity would end up being a society is the best way for it to go, not a committee. Everybody looks at committee, oh, committee, that's a committee of council. And it doesn't have to be, it goes as a society.
Yeah.
Okay,
So the important thing for the
Yeah.
committee is whether that's the direction you'd consider as a better way to deal with it, and your input in this case. And then we could look at a mechanism to take back to the community.
super duper. So just wrapping up, I'll just go through what we covered today, and then I'll get any last points. Mr. Dickinson gave us a very quick update on 710 and I think 711. The committee positions are still open. I guess we just keep them open. Communications. Over communication at Lytton, address it to or attention to CASC and it will get to us. The gift card donation, I will go back to council. I will go to the recording first. I'll go through it. Then I will, if it's written the way it is here, I will go for changes to move that June 1st to the 15th of June.
We
And I'll
had,
move the-
yeah.
Pardon me? Can I finish, please?
our original motion was the 29th.
That is right.
Yeah.
And on the 29th, we've got a bunch left over. We've got to give them to the TNRD that doesn't have time to get them out to their people. We have to start thinking about getting these ones out. Okay, well, they're still active. As I said at the meeting, I do not want somebody coming and say, I had $350 worth of groceries on the counter at Walmart, passed my card and it said, sorry, declined, it's outdated. We need other people to have time. So the 15th is halfway between. And then I'll
Okay.
get the area I or the one above, because my understanding at the council meeting was what was going to be left over was what's going to go to the TNRD. Well, that's what I'll take to them. I'll also will take back the unmet needs responsibility. I'm going to say it is beyond our capabilities and it should be done under a society because it's working for somebody or reporting to somebody, excuse me, to an identity that which is not the mayor and council. So I'll go around the room one time before we close the meeting off. If we got any last minute points. Member Michelle?
Not a point, more of a question. People are wondering about the Heller High Water fundraiser that was done by the Merit Rotary Club. Somebody approached Merit and they said that the funds have already been transferred over to Lytton. So I don't know if they're sending it to the village. I'm not sure. So there are questions now about how to access those funds and whether or not, so if it goes to the village, if it is going to include all of Lytton area, not just the village in the municipal boundaries. So if
Just
someone
taking
can
note.
look into that.
I will get back to you, or I'll get back to the committee. I had absolutely nothing to do with that. What is hell or high water?
It's the fundraiser.
Okay, I don't know anything. I don't
Yeah,
get
and
it.
I don't know if we received the money, but we could ask Terry.
Yeah, I'll get an answer for that.
Thank you.
Is that it?
Yeah.
Member Lightfoot?
I've got a few things. I'm just gonna make a statement, then I've got a couple of comments. But June the 30th is an unavoidable anniversary, and recognizing the significance of the impact of the event on all the citizens. There's a group of people that are now discussing options on how that day will be recognized. I don't want to say celebrated, but recognized, and there'll probably be a community gathering that day. Having the media there is unavoidable. You know, like them or hate them, we have no control over them and they will be interested. And I just, I think the village needs to be aware of this, that progress of our community will be judged at that particular time. Just a heads up and maybe an incentive to get her going, guys. That's all.
If I
I'll
could
say
wave a
about it.
magic wand, Jesua, and clear it all up tomorrow, I would have done it 3 months ago and get back to retirement. So
Well, maybe
whether the
we
media,
can get-
or whether the media or not is there, because of course, the media is there about once a week. Somebody in Lytton keeps inviting them there about once a week. So it's not a news
Well,
story
maybe-
anymore.
Maybe Owen can use it on TELUS and BC Hydro to get their act together and clean out their mess. Anyway,
That'd be nice. That'd be
just
nice.
just want, so the Voyant alert. I have a concern that it's being used for non-emergency communication, such as village updates and such. And I was in the Resiliency Center the other day and it went off. And I actually have corresponded with the communications, I think it was, that I thought it was only for emergencies. And they said, no, we're using it for newsletters. And my comment was, it's somewhat concerning because I don't believe it's used like that in other locations. I believe it's intended for just emergencies. And if it's overly used for non-emergency communication, the tendency will be for me not to worry when I hear it.
I can appreciate the calling wolf too much. As you noticed, the last couple of weeks, we transitioned to an electronic newsletter, and we were able to use some of those lists that have been talked about to expand the distribution. And I think it may be a good transition as we move into fire season to perhaps move away from the Voyant in case it is needed for emergency again. The system does allow, we're not the only municipality that has used it for non-emergency, but we'll take your recommendation to the recovery team and chat about it a little bit more.
Okay, thank you. And my other issue, and it's not an issue with you per se, it's like I can only sign up for TNRD or the village, and like I'm sort of like right on the borderline. So I really need to know both. So I don't know if there's any way we can accommodate those of us that maybe work in town but live outside. I mean, historically, or you know what I mean? It's fractured, and it may miss people. One other point, many months ago, this committee requested that we be part of the interagency meetings. And I believe through discussion, it was decided that if we received minutes from those meetings, that would be adequate. And I haven't seen anything. I think we got one set of minutes, maybe in December, maybe in January. So I don't know if that's something that we could have reinstated. I think it would be insightful for us to be able to see what's going on, and we'd be more educated when we're talking to citizens about what we know and what we don't know. Or okay. And back to the $24,000. I'm sorry.
That's why, just hang on a second. The minutes from the interagency will get back again. The person that made that commitment and got the first one's no longer working here and probably did not pass that on to the person that replaced them. So it just got left by the wayside, but we can reactivate that pretty quick.
And just to add to that too, I do sit in on that meeting, and that's most of what's going out in the newsletter. So you are getting the updates through the newsletters as well, if that's helpful.
Okay. We just thought there might be more information. As far as timelines, those are always, speculation. Firm information is good, but information that it's being worked on even is valuable. So in silence, people sometimes worry that the background's not working. Anyway, back to the TNRD issue. So I do believe that the motion says that any leftover monies will go to the TNRD people. That's one issue. But the other issue is this committee, I think, has indicated that if there's additional funds to be given out, they might want to put forward a motion that the TNRD people receive the same amount of money. out of the $24,000. And during the discourse of the last committee meeting, I actually sent out a 2 or 3 page, I called it Appendix A, to the committee members before the motion was brought forward, which said we need to understand better what the composition of this $24,000 is. If it's all cash, it's not all cash, it's cash, money, and gas. So if there was enough cash in that pot to accommodate TNRD residents, supposing that Lytton uses up all of the CN money, can we bring that back to this committee? Is that a decision that council would like us to contemplate?
I believe when I read stuff, and I haven't been able to track it down in our old record, it's 26,000 and it's from Royal Bank of Canada and Visa cards. I've been unable to find out where the letter that came with it said, this is what the money's for. Okay, the only one I know it didn't say was for me. Okay, so the letter would say it's for this person, that person, people that lost their house. There's lots of people in Lytton still on Ponderosa and Roaring Way have to drive a lot of miles to get groceries, et cetera, too, that are still part of our village and had to do the evacuations also. So I'm trying to track that down, and let me tell you, it is a job, but I will get to the bottom of it if I have to phone the Royal Bank. And the gas is worth about 3,500 total, and the groceries, 680.
Okay, minimal then. You know, it has become an issue of what do fire victims mean? So we have the village proper, which, and then we have the extended community, which also includes First Nations. And I know some funding has happened there that hasn't happened here. And I just want everyone to feel that they haven't been neglected. And I'm hearing quite loudly that the TNRD residents, which shopped in Lytton, had their post office in Lytton, lived a few miles out of Lytton, feel that they should be included in this disbursement. And if there's not enough money in the 58,000, I'm hoping that we can perhaps accommodate their needs out of the 24,000 somewhere. And it needs to be discussed in our next agenda. I guess I'm asking for it to be on the next agenda, really. I think that's more than enough for me. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Member Hogan?
Nothing for me, thanks.
Thanks, Johnny. So I need a motion for oh, sorry, you still got reports to do.
No,
What? I got number 7 reports on mine.
Committee member. Oh, yes.
Yeah, I do my committee remember report. Member Michelle, anything to report from people you've talked to, et cetera?
Oh, the big thing right now is the donations, like Jesua mentioned.
Yeah.
That's it.
Super. Thank you.
Yeah.
Member Hogan? Member Hogan?
You could be muted.
Member Lightfoot?
well, I'm confused because I thought that's what I rambled on about was committee reports, the anniversary, the voyant alert, the extra money, the interagency minutes.
Okay, your report's taken.
Yeah.
Now I need a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Thank you. Next meeting, May 4th, 4 o'clock. Yvonne, thank you for your time. Much appreciated.
Oh, you're most welcome.
That's good.
Thank you.
Okay, everyone have a
Thank
good
you.
evening.
Okay, thanks, everyone.
Night.
Keep